Welcome to the Rolldown, the podcast where we cover everything about TFT Esports, from the grassroots to the pro circuit, from the couch to the crown. We cover it all. My name is CLE, and so glad to be joined by a COVID survivor, Gangly. Welcome to the show.
Wow, yeah, I mean, that's quite a title, Jack.
You did. You survived it.
I sure did. I did survive it twice, actually. So I'm here. Yeah,
Wow.
Thank you for the introduction. Happy to be here.
Well done. We do have our first guest on the show, and I'm so excited to introduce a TFT Set Championship qualifier, the co-creator of Rincón TFT and the Latin America GOAT. PieHat is on the show. Welcome. So glad to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I've only survived COVID once, so Gangly beats me to that. But yeah,
Right.
I want to apologize in advance, just in case some English words don't English hard enough. I'll make some mistakes every now and then, so bear with me.
Well,
Yeah.
This weekend was the first tournament for the TFT Pro Circuit of all time, and we do have a champion from 3 regions. So we'll get into all that. But guys, how was the weekend from your perspective as a viewer? As I was on a co-stream for the first day, it was very, very fun to watch.
I was in and out throughout the weekend, and so I never actually got to sit down and watch a super long stretch until the finals, which was the only time I actually sat down and was like, okay, I'm gonna watch TFT for multiple games, was going into game 5. So I actually caught the absolute best part of the tournament. I mean, it blew me away. It was really, really cool.
If that's a time to watch the tournament, I think you chose the perfect spot.
Yep.
On my end, we usually do a co-stream of every tournament, and we saw it all the way through. We basically followed the 2 Latin American players. And I think it's a really insane format and really fun to watch, both from day 1 and day 2, and day 3. I mean, there was such a crazy thing all around. So I think it's one of the best moments for a Latin American region. We really needed that, and I'm so happy. It's finally happening.
Yeah, as you should be. It was a fantastic weekend and electric format and all the different things, but we'll get into all of that. On this episode, we'll be covering the recent tournament results from the sub-regional to the pro circuit. We'll look at some competitive composition stats to help you guys with your climb, and then we'll have some reminders about what's coming up so you don't miss it. But first, let's get into some headlines for this week as we look forward in TFT. The Paris Open, the snapshot happened, and now tickets are on sale soon.
Every Discord I was a part of just had people last minute trying to get help or posting the results. I know Harmony from Tri-State, if anyone's familiar with them, they were grinding so hard and ended up being 1 LP off of the cutoff. So the cutoff happens, and now whatever happens. What we have to look to now is just how fast the tickets actually sell out. PieHat, Jack and I were talking about it last week, and we were trying to figure out is it going to make it to the Masters and below section, or do you think all the tickets will be sold out just from Challenger and GM?
Oh, Master, no. I don't think that's gonna happen. But I do remember that for Macau, a couple of tickets opened for the Grandmasters, because I think when the challengers, I can't speak, I'm sorry. When the challengers tried to buy the tickets, I think they ran out in 10 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And the day later, I believe, I may be wrong, the chairman or someone posted, we're gonna open 100 more tickets or something like that. So the GMs try to snatch a couple of the slots. It may happen again here, mostly because it's Paris. Paris, I think, is more accessible for a lot of players. And I know people from Latin America or Brazil and other regions that weren't able to go to Macau due to flight expenses and the distance and all that. They are trying to get into Paris. So I think it's going to be a really interesting race. Who can update, who can refresh the page faster to get the spot?
I feel like with Macau going so fast, a part of it had to be that just in general, I think the West has a smaller player base than the East. And so everyone who's, Macau is a pretty central location for Asia in particular. And so I think it really comes down to how many of the, APAC or CN players are going to be making a trip over to Paris, because Vegas was like mainly Americas, and then you had some EU representation, but very little CN and APAC representation compared to the field. And then obviously Macau is the opposite. So this is the question, is like, how many APAC and CN players are going to be making out to Paris?
The interesting thing is we'll find this out on Sunday, right? That's September 7th.
Yep.
We'll see a lot of these go on sale for the Pro Circuit and for those who have been to recent Tacticians Crowns. And then September 8th is the day we're all saying, hey, these might sell out. And we'll see. But, you know, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I didn't even get close to hitting Challenger, so we'll see what we can do. Moving along here, we did have another tournament happen this weekend. It is one of these open tournaments. It was a sub-regional hosted by Anzid and Boises, who had the sub-regional. It is an awesome opportunity to break your way into the competitive scene, because all you have to do is sign up. You don't have to meet a rank requirement, but you get entered into a raffle to see if you get in. $5,000 prize pool, and Slice Down took the win.
I don't know who Slice Down is, PieHat, Jack. I don't know if either of you are familiar with this player. They won it over a field that was, you know, sub-regionals are always a mixed bag, but it's not like they're easy fields, you know, relative to the entire player base. You're not playing all plat, emerald, diamond players. Like even in this list, you know, in 1 through 8, we have David Ace, Tropical are the two players that stand out to me. 1v9 Peter, another player. So the 2, 3, and 4 are all pretty notable players, at least like players who have shown up in the competitive ecosystem of North America in the past. So yeah, congrats to Slice Down for making a name for themselves and taking first here. They'll go straight to weekend 2, right? Straight into the cup.
Yeah,
which is not this weekend, but the next, right? Is that what that is?
Yep.
Yes.
Trials is this weekend. The top 4 make it to cup. The bottom 4 of this, so 5 through 8, make it to trials. And so that's kind of what these sub-regionals are all about. Obviously, Slice Down taking a $1,000 prize pool is pretty sweet, too. He also got second at a sub-regional last set. So finally was able to get over that, and now is able to win a sub-regional this time around. So it's fun to see. I love these. I know, PieHat, you run a lot of events kind of similar to this in your region, right?
Yeah, sub-regionals in LATAM are a tradition at this point because unlike NA, mostly everyone signs up for our sub-regional. So it's like the big showdown of all the big names, and they always like to fight. Because that's one of the few things that I actually miss from the old formats, pre-Americas formats. Like the brawl, the full-on fight between everyone from the region. So at least we have that going on. But it's really cool because there's a lot of names that start from sub-regionals, and then they can make their name through. And maybe Slice Down, if he can work his way up into the top 10 from the next cup, he goes to the regional finals.
Yeah.
Just because he try-harded really hard for one sub-regional, then practiced for the cup. That's a really nice flow. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on him.
Yeah, this keeps the dream of going from your couch to the crown alive, right? There's obviously steps to that, but this is the entry step, and it's a great way to do that. But let's talk about the top step. Let's talk about our first of the TPC events. The Battle Academia Cup happened this weekend, and it was electric. The format was awesome, but we did have a lot of surprises, and I know that's probably what we'll want to talk about first, Gangly.
Yeah, okay. So we want to talk about surprises. We want to talk about format. Let's, I think, first start with the day 1 exits. So on day 1, the bottom 8 players were eliminated. These were Marcel P, Wajan Iverson, McMano, Chunnington, Talian, Replay, Greya, and Bio. Okay, right off the bat, if anyone listened to episode 0 of this podcast, you will notice that 4 of the players that we put in the top 8 all went out in day 1, right? Wajan Iverson going out, Bio going out, Greya going out. Oh no, we didn't put Marcel in, right? Oh no, we did, yeah. And Marcel going out. So 4 players, and then Replay, another player who we said if he's in form would be someone that is expected to do well. The one that stands out the most, head and shoulders above everything else on here, though, is Wajan Iverson going out in 26th place in the first TPC event.
Yeah, his last game was heartbreaking. I was able to watch that one, and he had this Crystal Gambit spot and went second with this crazy spot to some it was Fishbone's Kaisa. It just sniped his carry and he lost. And if he would have went first, he would have made it through. And so he was
We
just
love
like, this
Fishbone.
is
Yes,
so
against
dumb.
Arctics. I remember
Yeah.
that game. Yes, that was brutal. That was really brutal.
So there was
But
lots of
you can't
surprises.
I will say you can't really look at TFT like that though. Like that's something
Yeah.
that's kind of the cope that I have when I'm mad at my own games. It's like, oh well, if Kaisa with Fishbones didn't snipe out my backline carry, then I would have made it through. And at the end of the day, it's like, well, if you had earned one more point across all of the different places that you could have earned 1 point, then you would have made it through. But it is so easy to point to like the one really visible one that felt outside of your control.
I do want to point out Wei Shan, even though he didn't make it through, I think it's outstanding to point out that he started the day with really with 4 kind of sad games. He went like 7-7, 8-6. And when a lot of players would crumble under pressure or when they would just feel defeated, he went 2-2. One of those went different. It was the comeback of the century. You two will be talking about this. It will be a talking point on the podcast. So I think it's really remarkable that even you can see the caliber of a player that even in the lowest of points, they can try to bounce back. Not it won't always work out, but it's there.
It sure is. I was just watching his stream too, and he's averaging like a 2 point something. So
Yeah.
clearly it's not a I'm up in bad form. It's more of a, hey, these games didn't go my way, and that's okay. We'll get him next time. And that's the good thing about this format is he doesn't have to completely fight through a bunch of different weekends, but instead, the next one will come around in a few weeks, and he'll be a favorite once again, and we'll go through the cycle.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is not gonna put Wei Shan as a favorite, even though what happened here. I think everyone's still gonna put Wei Shan at top 5 at least.
Agreed.
I would think so. One of the notable things is we did lose 3 BR players in the first day, which was sad for that region. They did end up getting someone into the finals with Babzera, who had a good showing in there. These are on screen currently the day 1 and day 2 total scores, so that's why you see the jump there. Looking at day 2, it was pretty close towards the top. Kurum did lose out on the final lobby by 1 point, but past that, it was a pretty big gap.
Well, okay, so if you're a podcast listener and you can't see the screen in front of us, Jack is pointing out how there is like quite a gap across the tiers of standings. I think we need to stop for a second to talk about the format of day 2, because this is something that we've seen at the Tactician's Crown, but never, I don't think we've ever done it regionally, right? So on day 2, your points from day 1 carried over, and you played 2 games. After 2 games, the bottom 8 players were bottom 8 were removed, and you played 2 more games. The top 4 in the standings automatically qualify into day 3, and the bottom 4 are eliminated. And so we were left with this very tight sandwich of players who had 2 games left to play. So that would have been, I guess, technically up to top 12, right?
Correct. 12 through
I think
4,
Yeah. So that's kind of where we're seeing one of the gaps on screen. I really like this format. I think personally, there's a world where I would just like to see and I'm sure there have been simulations done on it. I would like to see what it looks like to have like a 3-game day on day 2 and then cut. Or maybe you even do like 3 games, cut, 2 games, cut, 1 game cut. I don't know if that would ruin the closeness that they're aiming to have on day 2. But the only thing for me is it does feel pretty bad when someone, like I think it was Bosso Skills, who did really well day 1, super well, it was in the top of the standings, and then going into day 2, he went 8-8 or 8-7, something like that, and then he was just eliminated. And that's tough. Like sometimes, how many times have we seen Wei Shan Iverson go into a tournament, go 8-7, 1-2, 1-1, right? And then he ends up qualifying into the next day. Sometimes the game just doesn't go your way. And so having like 2 games before the cut, to me, I would like to see 1 more game. But overall, I think the format was amazing. I don't know about you guys. I think it was a huge improvement.
I think it's a really great format, really hyped to watch, both and also really interesting to play, because there's always something, especially when you're on the top 16, you have something to aim for at all intervals. And I think the final 8, the 5th place to 12th place racing against each other, maybe one of those players can already feel like they're already in. For example, Michael on the 12th game he was already locked in, so he didn't really have anything to play for. But it does create this very interesting dynamic on people can still try to recover. But the only big hurdle is what you said about the first two games. For example, Tech Summers, who was also eliminated, I think he went I think in the graphic says it here, he went 22. On game 7, the first game of day 2, his power ran out. He had patient study, AFK or one of those combos, one of the econ combos on early augments, and he was very prone to going level 9 on 4-2 or 4-5, and his PC started crashing out on 4-1, and he wasn't able to do that transition, and he went, I think 7th or 8th, and that felt really bad because there was no longer any chance of a comeback.
Right.
That's the only point, the only pin I would put to the format.
I remember being in Robin Song's stream right before the day started, and him realizing that he has 2 games to make up I think he was like 5 points down from the cut. He's like, so I have to go first, basically. And then he went like 8-7 because he's trying to play for first. So it is interesting. It's like there's not really a comeback mechanic for some players on day 2. Or again, if you have one bad game or your power goes out, you're just kind of there's not much you can do. So, but overall, I think it was a little bit of a surprise to see who our top 8 was revealed as at the end. I think, people like Setsuko Dish Soap down there at 14 and 15 didn't quite make it. Obviously we're talking about some people that were a little bit lower than that too, but there were some people we got right, Gangly. There were some people that we put as, hey, we think these guys are going to be top 12 that did make it. I think most notably is probably Kambuli.
Yep. Yeah. And I do real quick just want to list out the top 8 players for podcast listeners. So in case you guys did miss it, it was Darthnub, RX, Bopster, Kambuli, Michael, Soju, Prestovant, and Bopzera. And yeah, so Kambuli and Prestovant were the 2 players that we put on our list for expecting to make it automatically into the second weekend or the final weekend of the regional finals. And so, yeah, we got 2. I mean, if we extend it into 12, did we get more if you extend it into the top 12? Because I think Setsuko and Dishope got 13th and 14th, right?
Yeah,
so we actually. Oh,
that's cheating.
Yeah, if you extend to top 12, you can add Kurum in there as well because he got 9th. So
we
were
did bad.
3. We did quite poorly. I really do think that most people probably did quite poorly on their predictions for this tournament. Like you're saying, Jack, it was a top 8 that was full of a lot of surprises. Arctic RX was, I think, the biggest surprise for me. Someone who people did not have a huge. People weren't betting on this player going into regionals last set. Going into TPC, they were not heralded as a favorite. You could see we here did not put him as someone we expected to make it to top 8. And Darthnub, a player who I've talked over the last couple of months so much about how volatile he is. Sometimes this guy can just win a tournament, and sometimes he just goes bot 2, and it feels like it's just one showing or the other. And listen, he had a tough performance at the last time he was at the Tactician's Crown. He made up for it here by having the best performance across the entire weekend. So even though Michael was the one that took the tournament, Darthnub really turned some eyes towards him. I mean, he had an incredible performance. But all of that does not matter because there's a reason we brought PieHat on this show, and that is so that we could talk about the winner of the tournament, Michael.
I mean, there's a lot of things to say, but I want to start just pointing out what you mentioned about Darthnub. I think both Darthnub and Kambuli are leaving the tournament as 2 of the strongest players that NA has at this point. And I think the tournament could have won for any one of those. I think Kambuli could have won Darthnub as well. So I think it was a really interesting race for the first place. But yeah, going back to Michael. I'm just really happy for him. For people who don't know much about Latin American lore, Michael has been competing ever since he started playing. I think he was even set 3 or set 4. I actually played against him on set 4, and due to one quick Zephyr, a small Zephyr on one of the rounds, I ended up beating him, and I went to the finals, and then da. But he had this tradition of he was very good. He was consistently top 1 ladder. Really great performance in cups in Latin American cups at this point, but he wasn't able to close it out. And then on set 8, I believe, when he was finally able to do that, something clicked and it changed. And from then onwards, he became the powerhouse that we know him today. If you talk to any North American player, they have to mention one Latin American player, they will mention Michael. I think he's been able to get his name known worldwide, so it's really good for him. And on set 14, he wasn't able to do much. He had a lot of personal issues. He even posted it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to share this, but he posted it on Twitter that he was facing depression and a lot of really bad. He went through a very bad year. He wasn't able to play on set 14, so he getting an invite to the Pro Circuit was like the Hail Mary, he felt that it was the second TFT giving him a second chance, and he started giving it his all. I mean, you can see the results, and you can see the pop off, and you can see the sentiment that not only him and we all had. Sorry for going on a full monologue on this, but
keep going.
Like Latin America, historically, Latin America has had ups and downs. From set 5 to set 10, we always had one player on the finals, in the final lobby on Worlds. Then Americas happened, and throughout the 11 cups that we had from set 11 to set 14, we only had 4 players make it to top 8. Brazil had 4 players making it on 1 cup, so you can see the difference. So we were really disheartened, and it was really feeling like the time has passed out, like the flame was flickering. And I think this is a good starting point. Tex did a great World Championship on set 14, and now Michael doing this. I think it's the start of like the renaissance of Latin America. So I think it's really important this win for us.
The Latin American Renaissance, I love that. First of all, I think Michael winning this, it not only is huge for Latin America, but also like the whole invite slots idea and the people that got invited. Like Soju made it as well, which into the finals, which means he belongs there as well.
Precedent.
Yeah, precedent too. It was insane that so many of these players that were like got the quote unquote pity slots, as people would say, are now in the finals. And so for somebody like Michael, who is now able to show up and not only make it far, but prove that they can win, it's just huge for the format, huge for Latin America, and just good for TFT in general.
I just want to kind of double down on something PieHat was talking about. I think it's really important that people understand LATAM's place in the Americas since the merging of the regions, because I think what PieHat is illustrating is that if you're a newer TFT fan, you might not even understand this, but for a long time, Latin America was a star in TFT. It was every time the Tactician's Crown of the Set Championship comes along, there is some sort of story. You have Tex doing the 3-time going to the Set Championship. You have Altanawe making it to the top 8. You had there were a bunch of top 8s. I forget all of them off the top of my head. But yeah, like you said, pretty much every set we had someone in the top 8. Set 11 comes around, and it actually is very exciting for Latin America. You have Michael and Altanawe racing for the qualifier point slot to see who's going to represent Latin America. It came down to their performances in the regional finals. And then after set 11, it wasn't just Michael. It kind of felt like Latin America as a whole just didn't show up. Yeah. And I remember actually talking to Hoope at the last Set Championship. Hoope-san, another TFT caster, if you're not familiar with him, saying like, I don't really know who the stars of Latin America are anymore. Michael hasn't, even when he's competed since in 12, 13, 14, hasn't really looked that good. Altanawe hasn't been showing up. Black Sheep is kind of this rising star, but isn't like the rising star that we've seen from people like, Ego Illusions or Sobio since the merging of the regions. And so for me, letting us all celebrate this moment together as like TFT fans to feel like, okay, Latin America, you guys have been struggling for a while. But this win from Michael not only shows that like you guys are still in the conversation, but it kind of lets us relive the olden days of TFT for a moment. That's like, yeah, like Latin America is so they're exciting to watch. They have so much emotion that they bring to the show. Like watching Michael win, you can see him crying on screen multiple times. He's getting out of his chair, he's screaming. It's just we don't always get to see players like that, and I think Michael got to show us why you should be rooting for Latin America. Like in that win altogether, I feel like he did so much for the fandom of LATAM as a whole.
Thank you. And I think it's one of the just to close out that those thoughts during the last sets. If you remember the format, there was always one spot secured for each region. Both North America, Brazil, and Latin America, they all had a slot to Tactician's Crown. And for a lot of people, especially NA players, which I don't really judge them for thinking like that, it felt like a pity slot. They felt like, okay, Latin America hasn't really been performing to go to Worlds, and now you have this. And now you have a player from our region being the first one qualifying. I think that's just it sets up a good precedent. I know a lot of players that are starting to get really invested again in the scene and seeing like, hey, I think we can do it, because you just need one trailblazer. The rest just comes through.
That's right.
Yeah, and Michael already locking his slot to the Tactician's Crown is amazing. And I think part of what makes this so amazing is the journey that it took to get there. So let's set the stage a little bit for what this day 3 looked like, because it shaped up to be one of the most exciting Checkmate formats we've had. I know the last Tactician's Crown was also a absolutely electric Checkmate, but this one was pretty equal.
It was, I mean, I think it kind of depends who you're rooting for. I think there's some world where like there's a lot of Soju and Prestevent fans who like in the first half of the day are probably not feeling super good. Prestevent actually, he actually did turn it around, winning game 4, but game 5, like you're saying, Jack, is where everything kind of culminated. I don't know if you want to play the video first or if you want to talk through it, but the big thing was Gangly looks like he's going to run away with the entire thing, and it looks like he's going to win, right? And it turns out to be heads up between Gangly and Michael, and Gangly has won 5 rounds straight. And it just feels like unless a miracle happens, the tournament is over. And the crazy thing is that a miracle ended up happening.
It sure did. We had 4 players on check. Gangly being one of them has this crazy Crystal Gambit spot. And we're just going to play this clip for you and talk about what happened afterwards. But this is from Frodan's co-stream of this final fight between Michael and Gangly. You'll hear them saying very confidently that they think one of these players is winning and one of these players is going to Worlds. But let's see what actually plays out.
Can't do anything about it, though. Can't do anything about it.
Well, like your Kaisa normally is just never gonna win you. Like it has a 0% chance of ever winning this fight, right? I mean, it's fine. Like it's just a really hard spot where it just like feels really hopeless.
Wow.
In the
spot. Oh man.
Wait.
Gangly.
Wait.
Wait. Oh my God. Go. Oh.
No.
Oh my God. Wait.
No way.
Oh my God, what?
Kabuko death.
No.
Double ult.
He won on
Oh my
God.
God. Oh my God. We're going to game number 6.
Look at him go.
What?
Like it's amazing. Like all the emotions. He stands up, he gets excited, breaks the camera for a second so it stops showing up, then comes back and just starts pounding his chest. Now there was one fight that happened on like 5-5 when Gangly was starting to do the final transition. And if you see, he currently has 1 HP. But on that fight, he had 9 HP. He fought against Michael and lost because he was in the middle of a transition and Kaisa can be really overwhelming at first. But due to how Braum works and how many poros he had, he went from 9 HP to 1. Like one more unit, he lost by 1 more unit and he was gone. So after that, it felt it was meant to be for Gangly to win. And then it ended up being a random Kabuko, being the savior of LATAM now.
to describe exactly what happened in this fight, Kaisa was obviously doing lots and lots of damage. The fight was close, but what it came down to was literally Rise and this Kobuko at minuscule HP being able to close out the fight through CC across the backline by the Kobuko. And you hear like T-Lides and Call saying there's like a 0% chance that they win this fight. And then Frodan's like, oh, Kambuli, here we go. And then they're like, wait a second. That's not exactly what's happening. And now tables turned. Michael keeps the tournament alive. So he doesn't win off this moment. He just keeps it alive. And then looking forward, it keeps it alive so that he can then go and take it for himself, which makes it even cooler.
So what's crazy is that at the end of the day, Game 7, it once again comes down to Michael and Kambuli heads up against one another. But I will say the second time they fought heads up, it was not even close. Michael ends up playing a game with Gambler's Blade Golden Edge, right? I think that's what it was. And just has so much gold, is able to make it into the Fast 9 Varus board and is able to convert. And you could say Game 7, Michael had the high roll spot and blah, blah, blah. I don't care what kind of spot Michael had, because Game 7 is not the game of the tournament. It's Game 5. Being on the edge of our seats, everyone expecting Kambuli to be able to win that game. Everyone on that co-stream, like you said, Jack, no one's expecting Michael to win, especially because Michael had just lost multiple rounds to Kambuli going into it. It's just, we very rarely get to have moments like this where TFT is a spectator sport. Like, it just, that's just the nature of it. Like we play a very decision heavy game, and there's a lot of like brainiacs that love our game. But there are certain moments that I think back on that have made TFT a spectacle. I think of Broccoli about to win the Vegas Open. I think of this, right? I think of the Nautilus 3 versus Annie 3 of Dish Soap's Set 11 World Championship. And I think it's just such a blessing that we got to watch that unfold in the first ever TPC event. If you're a new viewer and that's like the first tournament you've ever watched, like, retire now, get out now, because this is peak TFT. I don't know if it's getting much better than this. This was maybe the best tournament I've ever watched.
I mean, 100%. The format is interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about Checkmate later. But on Game 7, it was whoever wins. Everyone had reached that 20-point threshold. Soju kept us alive in the game before this with a Crystal Gambit game that was pretty insane. I think we all knew he was winning fairly early on in the game, but kept it alive for this Game 7 where it was winner take all. It changes the way people play completely, and Michael had the best spot for it and was able to pull it off, and it was just amazing. And because of that, we get to crown our first America's winner for the TFT Pro Circuit, and that is Michael.
Clap, 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 clap. It was really funny watching all the streams at the same time, because on Game 5, Soyu's stream was like, Michael, save us. On Game 6, Michael's stream was like, Soyu, save us, please. And then we started a tag team until Game 7. There's not much else to add from all my monologue at the start. I think it's just really, really well deserved, and this is the first victory that LATAM has ever had, and I think it's great that he was the one who made it. I think both him and Tex were half what it takes to win it all, and it just was a matter of who got their moment, who rode the wave. Like if you're a current TFT fan. And it was just Michael's all along. He played real well Day 1, Day 2, and Day 3. So he knows how to close out whenever the opportunity arises. So really happy for him.
Absolutely. And the good news is this doesn't just happen in the Americas. It happens across the world. There's also the EMEA circuit going, as well as APAC as well. So we're not going to go as deep into those because we are, a little bit more Americas focused over here. And we'll talk a little bit about them, though, because it does make a difference, because these two players have also secured a spot at the Tactician's Crown, which is very fun to talk about already. And so let's look across the pond at EMEA. The winner was Traviscwat, who is not ever been to the world stage before, but is not unfamiliar to this level of TFT.
Yeah, I wish I had like a ton to say about Travis. Of course, I've seen the name around. I know he is like he's an icon in EMEA TFT. I actually wasn't sure if he had ever made it to the set championships, but you're saying he hasn't before, Jack?
He is not. But he has made regionals. What was it? 4 out of the last 5. So he's had opportunities, and now just finally secured it.
Just very quickly on his Liquipedia, I could see it like Dragonland, Runeterra Forge, Remix Rumble, Inkborn Fable. It's pretty much every regional final since he started making regionals. It looks like maybe he's missed 1. Actually, no. I think he's actually. I think he might have made every single one. Oh, set 8. He missed set 8, and apart from that, he's made every single regional. So another player who I think you could just argue like they were due for a win this big. So yeah, congrats to Travis.
Two things I want to say about him. I've really liked how he played on the final game. He didn't rush it. Just to give context, once again the Barrows comp ended up winning out, but he played it with a lot of patience. A lot of players would just rush, and on 4-5 will go level 9, send all the gold down, and try to hit everything because of the pressure of the lobby and the instance. He has started to play it very slowly, managing each and every piece that he had, just to get enough HP to the full transition onwards, and just end up winning the game overall. And I also wanted to point out that this means that 2 ex-Navi players won the Pro Circuit, because both Michael and Travis were competing together in Navi and didn't make it for EWC, so that's unfortunate. But they were former teammates. So that's really cool.
Oh, I didn't know that fact. That's a good fact. That was the most recent one, right? The most recent EWC? Yeah. And this final lobby for EMEA was crazy. These are some of the best from EMEA towards the top here. KC Double, probably most notably, got that 3rd place finish, so very much back on the top. I don't know if he ever left, but very much had his hat in the ring as well. Across these guys, Travis, Conid, Double, Lires, Bensack, Goboster, Salvi, and Cubicson. All of those names are people that were like, yeah, they made it to the Tactician's Crown. None of us would probably be surprised. Maybe Conid is probably the most notable. He's a very up-and-coming player, and I know studies across regions a lot, so lots of people that are big fans of him. And so it was a fantastic weekend of TFT, and I was able to catch some of the end of these games, and it was nearly as exciting, but not quite the clippable moments we had over in the Americas.
That's okay. It's okay for us to be in the spotlight deservedly. You know, I think Americas, we put ourselves in the spotlight because that's kind of what we do. This time we actually deserve to be in the spotlight. Yeah. So yeah, great stuff, EMEA. I think everything you've said is perfect, Jack. There's a lot of notable players. I don't know how deep we want to go into it, but I think you've covered quite a bit.
Yeah, I think one of the most notable things is for the next Pro Circuit event. It is a mixed region event between the Western and the Eastern regions. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about this later and looking forward to this. But the results from both of these influence where you ended up. And so this EMEA TPC 2 looks absolutely stacked with players because just the way it ended up, we have like Kambuli and Dish Soap, Setsuko, Weijin, Greya, all on this EMEA TPC with some of the best over there. And so it is going to be an electric competition between the two. The same thing's happening between APAC and CN. On the other side, we don't know who CN is sending yet. I don't think they've completed their tournament. But some of those things as well happening. It's going to be incredibly exciting. And so the results from this past weekend influence that. But let's keep moving forward to the very first person to lock in their spot at the Tactician's Crown. It is, by no surprise, Ironbog.
This guy is just unbelievable, right? I mean, he has not been playing that long, like competitively, especially relative to most of the players he's competing against. And he just keeps winning, right? He's a 2-time regional champion from APAC in 3 regionals that he's competed in, two regionals, something like that. And to see him winning the first TPC, he won it in 4 games also. I know something I did want to bring up is that in day 2, he had a really cool game where he needed a first, I'm pretty sure, to make it into day 3. And he played this solo leveling Yasuo, slammed BT Crown Guard Yasuo on stage 2 and streaked till 3-7. And then was able to go fast 9 off of a Crown Guard BT slam. It was very cool. He ended up playing Varus TF out of it. So Ironbog's kind of showcasing like some real skill gap, I think, between him and the average pro TFT player.
I don't know if we have the table of or the standings here, so because this is the other side of the coin when you talk about Checkmate format, because we've talked about how in Americas everyone was on check, on EMEA almost everyone was on check, so it was it went to game 6 or game 7, but in APAC it just went for 4 games, the minimum necessary games for any player to win the tournament, and it just screams dominance of a player. He went second, and when he was on check, he won. So this is like one of the most dominant instances of a player in Checkmate, and I think it just screams of how good he is and how far out of the league, far above from the rest of the league. And you can see some of the biggest APAC names. Ironbog, obviously. You have Asa, who has been playing, have been up and coming as well. Bimtum, YBY, Dr. Road. I never knew how to pronounce him. Chaos. Okay.
Chaos. Yeah.
They are heavy hitters from the scene, and they have been on multiple worlds, and people know them since TFT started. So I think it's really cool to see that level of dominance on that lobby.
And it's not just this lobby, right? Like, this is something that we don't see very often. Obviously, 4 games. We saw it with Title and the Tactician's Crown a few sets ago. But he has won 3 out of the last 4 events at this regional caliber in APAC, which is just absolutely insane. He very well might be the best player in the world currently, especially when it comes to tournament play, because no one is winning as much as him across sets at this high level of competition. It's just he's kind of due to make a run at a Tactician's Crown and take the whole thing. He got a top 8 at one point. He got 10th at the Macau Open, and now he's just already punched his ticket, but now needs to prep in a way that he can just go and take the thing for himself and maybe even win Checkmate once again in 4 games.
I think if you're an APAC fan, you are extremely happy with Ironbog winning the first cup.
We have our first 3 players locked into the Tactician's Crown, which is incredible to say early on in the set, and I think is really fun that they can continue to shape their narrative and prep in a way that gets them ready for that. So Michael, Traviscwat, and Ironbog locked in, the winners of our first TPC events. And now we're looking forward towards the rest of this. It's such a fun format. It's brand new, and so there's just tons of excitement. But I think one of the things that people watch competitive TFT sports, specifically if you are a fan of TFT, if you just play TFT, you're like, well, I want to watch the best players in the world because I want to know what they play. And so don't worry, we're going to give you guys an update. We're going to talk about some of the comp stats from this weekend across these regions, from the Americas to EMEA to APAC, and see what they all had to bring us, some of the unique stuff, some of the more popular stuff, what worked well, what didn't. And I know, Gangly, you have some points prepared for this.
Yeah, I'm going to throw some stuff to you guys because I've got some questions. I know you two have been playing and watching quite a bit. So I will say, if you do look through all 3 of the regions, there are a lot of similarities. I think it's the top 5 comps are relatively similar. There's like 1 or 2 compositions. So if we're looking at EMEA right now, most popular is Prodigy, the Battle Academia Prodigy stuff, Vertical Star Guardian, Duelist with Udyr and Ashe, Kai'Sa reroll, and then this is the spot that gets a little bit tricky depending on what region you are. In EMEA, it is Mentor, Mech, Senna, and Rise. I think one of the regions might actually have another like Sniper Jin there. So those top 4 though are pretty standard. They're pretty locked across all four regions. But even though the compositions are similar in terms of play rate, the stats behind those compositions vary quite a bit. And the one that stood out to me the most right off the bat, actually, hold on, I'm trying to look at it to make sure I didn't write this wrong. Yeah, okay. And we'll come back to the top 5 because look at Legendary Varus in the Americas compared to the other two regions. In the Americas, Varus had an 11% win rate. In EMEA, it had a 45% win rate. And then in APAC, I think it was 53% win rate. And so I don't know if this was like a sorting error that America's Varus stats were not being counted as legendary Varus, or if we actually just had that many players go Fast 9, try and play Varus, and then miss.
If I recall correctly, Varus on day 1 and day 2 had horrible stats. On day 2, I think it was played twice, and it had an average of 7.0. So I think the few players that tried to go Fast 9 on the first 2 days just kind of didn't make it. And I think due to how the format works, on day 1 and day 2, people just try to play for AVP. People try to slam a little more, be more aggressive. So you get to level 9 with even less HP than you do on day 3, for example, because on day 3 is a whole different beast. So that I think that's what's been happening. And I see Americas has a tendency to just slam whatever they have. So I think that's why the stats look a little saucy in that regard.
And I think also it has a very high 8th place rate, which obviously brings down your AVP for this composition. It has the second highest 8th place rate out of any of the comps listed on our screen. These are the top 10 comps from each region. Edgelord Xayah is just not a good comp. I would
the king of 8th.
Just don't play it. It's just not. Anyway, but I do think that specifically the way the final day shaped up, this was people's go-to composition on day 3. And I think in the final lobby, I bet 4 people were marked as trying to play Legendary Varus, including Soju, who went 8th. So, like, there's some of those other things that kind of skew it of, like, if I need a win, this is what I'm playing for. I'm sure somebody like Robin Songs on day 2 to try to get out of the hole that he was in, tried to play it, and it didn't work out. So that's probably just what happened. It's still a very good win rate comp. Americas doesn't reflect that, though.
I did very quickly just want to point out a couple things before I throw some more questions at you guys. Something I thought was very interesting, and I think this is kind of historically accurate as well, is that EMEA, in their composition sheet, had nearly double the number of unique reroll compositions as Americas and APAC. They played things like Lucian reroll and heavyweight reroll, not just like the Supreme Cell stuff, like the heavyweight version, and then Kale reroll, Lux reroll all showed up, and they didn't quite make their way into both America and APAC. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But I noticed that Star Guardian was the second most played comp, I think, in all 3, but the stats are vastly different for performances. If you're in APAC or in EMEA, Star Guardian's AVP was significantly worse than America's, but the win rate was significantly higher. So in America, the AVP was 4.6 with a 3% win rate. In EMEA and APAC, the AVP was like 4.8, 4.9, but both of them had roughly an 11 or 12% win rate. So Jack has been the one kind of coaching me through a couple of my games. So I'm gonna lean on Jack a little bit here. You tell me, without having watched these closely, just kind of go with your gut. What do you think is happening in these games for the Americas versus EMEA and APAC that these stats are so different in the Americas?
I think Star Guardians was a default composition for a lot of players in the Americas. I think specifically for Soju, who everyone was jokingly calling him SGA, which was Star Guardian Abuser. I thought it was hilarious. It's also a basketball player that they call SGA, so that was anyway. It was very much a default comp that can very often get second or third, and sometimes get first from the right spot if you have that +1 with the emblem, if you can hit Seraphine 2 and all your upgrades and get to 9 and all these things. I just don't think that was how people were playing it in the Americas versus the rest of the world, where Americas was playing it more around 8 and figuring it out from there, where for EMEA and APAC, it won a lot of games. 12% here and, what was it, 15%? Or no, 14, 13.5 for APAC? No, 12. Stats are hard to read.
12. Still 4 times the win rate of the Americas, though. Like, those are significantly higher. So that would make sense, if they're leaning more towards using it as, like, I think Star Guardian to me strikes me a little bit like Rebel, in the sense that it's a very high, it's like a resource-heavy composition. You need to hit your 2-star 4 cost, and you need to go 9, and you have to upgrade your 5 cost. And if you do, if you check all those boxes, you can win. But if you don't, you're kind of praying for a fourth. So maybe it was like Americas is leaning more into the we're trying to get our fourth, play on 8, upgrade our board, and get out. And maybe EMEA and APAC were playing a bit more patient with it and greeting to go 9. It's just interesting because it's such a vastly different scoreline between the regions. I don't know.
Especially because if you look at the stats from America, they have very few games of Mentor. And I do think that it's probably easier to go towards Mentor where you can just die on 8. Unlike Star Guardians, because I think a lot of players do the mistake of playing Loose Streak into Star Guardians when you want to save HP. You can slam almost anything on that comp, and it will work. You can even you can go full, for example, Poppy, you can have it go full tank items, or you can go the new build that is like Protectors, Crown Guards, Terax, with the power up of Best Defense that makes the shields convert into damage. Ari can use whatever. Jinx can do mostly anything as well. Seraphine as well. So I think people are just playing it in not the most optimal lines, and they're just forcing it as a default comp. When I don't think that's the best default comp due to all the conditions that you mentioned, which is very similar to Rebel from set 13, I think.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
If I were to have a dark tech comp, it would definitely be Best Defense Poppy. It's so funny. You just build infinite shields on it, and it hits for like a truck. It's so funny, but it really actually is good. So if you try it in your games, just let us know. It'll be a great clip. I guarantee you. Any other learnings?
PieHat did. Well, I was just gonna say that PieHat actually did bring up the fourth learning that I had, which was that APAC prioritized the Mentor Senna line way more than any other region. They actually had more Mentor Senna games in APAC than EMEA and Americas combined. And it did quite well. I mean, it's like the AVP is strong for this level of play. At 4.5, if your fast 8 comp is a 4.5 AVP, that is good. Its top 4 rate was pretty low, but it did. They showcased that this is a fast 8 line that is capable of winning out. And so I don't know how much the patch is going to change between now and the next cup, but this line has been gaining popularity in America. So this might be something you guys want to you can bring into your own solo queue games.
Yep. It's one of my favorite lower resource fast 8 comps, just because you just need your 2-star upgrades. And it can be very strong. If you can get the 3-star Senna, it can really win games as well as maybe some of these other 3-star mentors that can do incredible amounts of CC. It's kind of similar to what that GP comp felt like to play against, where it's just everyone is contributing and there's so much damage and so much CC being spread across it that it is pretty consistent. So definitely something that's worth trying to play. And as PieHat said earlier, maybe instead of playing Star Guardians, you should probably play this comp instead. Present more in China, a lot of their tournaments are Checkmate, but for us here in the Americas, it's a unique thing that we get to experience at the Tactician's Crown, and some of our players don't like it very much, or at least crash out about it for a really long time on stream after the tournament's over. This is the TFT Clips thumbnail, and I just think it's hilarious. But gentlemen, let's talk about Checkmate and how we feel about it. And, Gangly, why don't you explain what it is real quick?
Okay, so if you are a new TFT viewer and you've never watched Checkmate, what this format is that you play as many games as it takes for a player to reach a certain threshold. Traditionally, it's 20 points. And then after they meet that threshold, they are put into check, where if they go first, they win the tournament. Now, Jack, I want to give my thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts. But the truth is, there is only one person in this podcast that has ever played
it's true.
At a world championship before, and that is PieHat. So I would like to first hear PieHat's thoughts on Checkmate in TPC in general and the qualification process for Worlds like we saw this past weekend.
I mean, you flattered me, but I wasn't near close to the Checkmate part of my Worlds, but appreciate it. I really like it. I'm one of those that have been defending Checkmate ever since it started. I think it's amazing for the viewers. I think it creates a lot of very interesting narratives. The only there's a couple of downsides though. It can feel like there's a lot of some dead games, for example. Let's just give me one example. In Game 6 from America's Pro Circuit, there were 6 players that were in check, and there was Soyu. Soyu wasn't in check. And he loaded into the game on 3-2 with double Crystal Gambit's pad, 7 Crystal Gambit, went to 8, 3-5, GG, basically.
Game over.
And I remember actively saying, if any bot watchers, skip 30 minutes, because there's nothing else to play for here. But other than those very independent games, I think it really creates an interesting dynamic between the lobbies. And also, it starts like this small war between players that are in check versus the players that aren't in check. And you can say that it can feel like disheartening for a player to be 1-1-1-1-1 and never win, and don't win on the checkmate, and start and end up going like second or third overall. But I do think that TFT, I know there's a concept, fact of luck, and there's a lot of variance, and sometimes you just load into a game knowing that you really cannot play it for a top 1. But there's a type of clutch factor that you have to do here. You have to capitalize, especially when everyone is starting to grid out more. And I do agree what Soyu said on his video, because I actually listened to it while I was walking my dog. It was really funny. He mentioned that he didn't like how everyone was playing for top 1. Everyone was playing for Baruscon gridding out, and yes, President played Kata Arena reroll, which wasn't gonna be the win outcome. But the other 7 players tried to do something like that, and he said that he felt that it wasn't TFT. And in a way, I can accept it, but in any other way, there's a lot of tournaments that have gone throughout the years that haven't been won by the Fast 9 legendary winning comp. Heck, in Vegas, where I think that's a tournament that everyone remembers, Annie reroll won. A one-cost reroll won. So it is really, unfortunate that all 3 TPCs were won by a Varus playing against a Yumi, and the Varus Fast 9 won. But I don't think that should be like the way to damage this. And I'm sorry for going on a full monologue, but again, and on the other point of the players say that, let's say that Bobster won the tournament, does he deserve to win? Yeah, sometimes, because players can just bounce back from bad spots. Summer Timer last set on the World Championship for set 14. For people who don't know, he started the day going 8-8-7. He was dead last. And this was game 7 of the championship, and he was the only one that wasn't in check. And he griefed everyone, played for first, and won the game, made it into game 8, and then he just clutched it out and won. And for me, that's something very similar to a reverse sweep in League of Legends, or on any sport, someone who makes it to the final part of the tournament, being dead last, and then he just goes on the massive losers bracket run and wins it all, because sometimes TFT is just one of those things. You just have to clutch it out. Like in Smash, for example, in Smash you can go to losers bracket at the start, and then you have to play your heart out all the way through, because there's no mistakes. Something similar can be happening here. So I'm really pro Checkmate, and I'm sorry for ranting too long.
No, I think these are great points, because TFT at its core is a game of variance, right? So if you can convert any spot into a first place, especially in these last games, you are obviously very good at the game and deserve to win. And so for like Michael here, who was able to do that with Varus, where a lot of other people were trying to play Varus, well, he did it better because his spot was better, and because of that, he was able to identify the line and was able to pull it off. But if they all weren't in a great spot to do it, and they all went out in the bot 4, maybe somebody like Precedent on the Katarina reroll, who played something a little bit more stable, could have won the whole tournament. So it just comes down to the game state and how the players play the lobby. But I think the main argument is we're playing this whole tournament of TFT. They've played 18 games up to this point of Game 7 in a certain way, and now all of a sudden we all play for first, so it changes the way we play completely. So does it belong or does it not? I think that was what Soju's main point was, because this doesn't feel like the rest of the TFT games we were playing.
That's on one way that's correct. Yes, but it's like saying everyone is playing for Czech because that's just the only game that matters. Not really. I think Soju even said it himself. What if I score 2 more points before the Crystal Gambit game? Then I would have won. I've gone to Worlds. What if Darthnub on the third game, instead of going fifth, he ends up clutching a fourth? He's the only one in Czech, and the entire dynamic changes. So that's it's not just the final game; is what comes before that as well.
Okay, I have 3 things to add, and I'm going to try and be brief on them. Okay, the first is going off of what PieHat is saying right now. You can't point to the flashiest thing and say that that is always a thing at fault. Yes, Michael going into Game 7 had an opener where he, and I would argue most players in TPC probably could have piloted Michael's game to a first place most of the time that they play, because it was a high roll opener in a line that they had all practiced. But you cannot just look at that as the reason the tournament ended, for the same reason that you cannot say Weijin Iverson got knocked out on day 1 because Fishbones hit his carry. You can't just point to the one thing that tipped the scale. You have to look at the underbelly, right? All of the small decisions, like PieHat is saying. If Soju gets 2 points earlier in the tournament, does he win when he gets the Crystal Gambit spot? Yes. That's just how TFT works. It's very easy to look at the last most recent low roll in your games and ignore all of the spots that could have optimized your spot leading up to that. The other thing I want to point out, though, is, and Jack, just so I'm understanding, actually, are you also pro Checkmate? You didn't give a firm stance.
Oh, listen, I am a serial viewer of TFT. I think it's electric. That's my formal stance.
Okay.
I just wanted to kind of play the other side a little bit.
I was hoping one of us would be like staunchly anti-Checkmate, because I used to really dislike Checkmate because of a lot of the things that the arguments that PieHat was bringing up that people say. It's like, okay, well, the best player doesn't win. Like, anyone can win. A lot of the stuff Soju was saying, to be honest, in his video. It's like, it comes down to one game. And at that point, it's like, you're all just flipping a coin, blah, blah, blah. I want to call back to something in set 9, if anyone who's listening to this was an active player, which was a certain patch called Draven Day. I know all this because I'm doing a video essay right now that actually should be releasing this week or next week about Draven Day, which was essentially a set of the legends gave you a specific set of augments, and if you chose Draven, you could basically play very high tempo. And when Draven got a little bit overtuned, all of a sudden, people realized that the more people that played Draven, the stronger Draven got, because one of the Dravens was going to be able to take the increase in tempo, the compounding tempo of the lobby, and take it so far that we get a 3-star 4 cost on like 4-5 or something. When we look back on Draven Day, something that stood out to me and to the Riot developer that I spoke to is how so much of Draven Day was actually not just Riot's doing of an unbalance, but have how much player agency informed what happened. The more people that opted into Draven, the stronger Draven became. And I feel like there's an element of that in Checkmate format where it's like, if all 8 players opt into playing a 1st or 8th style, then all of a sudden you are not rewarded to play more standard TFT. But the reality is, like, it's the players opting into that coin flip style to begin with that makes it that way. Something that Frodan talked about on his co-stream over and over again is how playing 1st or 8th in Checkmate sometimes is a trap. Like, if you are actually just flipping a coin, you don't realize that, like, you think you're flipping a coin, but because it's your best chance, but sometimes you're flipping a coin that's weighted outside your favor. And if you played more standard, you would actually be more likely to have a high placement. And maybe if everyone else is flipping that coin and it all comes up tails for them, you're now playing the standard top 4 comp that's able to cap out into a win, especially if people are playing like really low tempo because they're trying to get there. And the final point I wanted to bring up about this is, do you guys think that in a day of 6 games, the best player wins the tournament? How often would you say that a 6-game sample size actually determines who is the best player in a lobby? It's a game of variance. Like, there's a ton of agency in TFT, but we also have to reconcile the fact that if you go on to meta TFT and you see an item combination with a 6-game sample size and it has a 2.1 AVP, you're not going to trust that just because it did well in 6 games. There's a lot of variance in this game, and to me, and this is what the reason I kind of shifted my opinion on Checkmate is because I do think that more often than not, the player who plays across an entire tournament will be the player who played the best over the course of the weekend. I'm not entirely sold that the person who plays the best over 6 games is consistently the best player in the field. And at some point, you have to just accept the fact that sports and games are not science. Like, it's not just a stat game. They're real people where anything can happen. Like, I think what I'm trying to say is that if you're going to have a game of variance and the results are not always going to be consistent, I would rather it at least be exciting. And Checkmate provides the best spectator experience that TFT has to offer. I do not think it's perfect. And I think that a lot of what Soju is saying is completely valid. Like, the way that it made him feel about the game, super valid. Like, it does warp the way that people see the final day of competition. So I'm not trying to write off his concerns or his frustrations, because I think they're very real. I'm just saying, for me as a spectator, I'm not entirely convinced that a 6-game sample size will give you the true victor of a tournament. So I am willing to trade a bit more variance for a significantly better viewing experience that makes the product as a whole easier to market and easier to sell. That's my thought.
You know, what's one of the most interesting games of last set's championship, doubling down on what you said of not always having to play for the same comp, was Robinson's playing Street Demon.
Yep.
No one played Street Demon on the championship, and he tried for 2 games. The first game was very close to getting it. He tried to go either brand free or Nico free, which are forecast for the people who haven't played that set. He was very close to getting that, and he almost wins the entire tournament by playing a completely uncontested line, going for the win con of going for a freestar. And there are a couple of plans that you can go into the game, and I do agree. Whenever we get more of these tournaments, which will happen because America Pro Circuit 2 and 3 will have Checkmate, people will start to develop more strategies towards that than just go for the biggest AVP comp.
I am obviously a huge fan, and long live Checkmate, in my opinion. I think there can be changes to make it a little bit more friendly, but it is absolutely electric to watch. But I think one of the big advantages to this is now that it's in TPC, our America's players specifically are getting more practice on Checkmate, where they were just doing it at the Tactician's Crown. And so, at least, I mean, they've done a good job over the past few sets. Obviously, they've won a bunch of these Tactician's Crowns. But I'm always nervous going into those, like, they don't practice this very much. Do they know that they have to change their play style for these last games in order to win this? Have they strategized about this, or were they just trying to get there? So I'm excited that they get to practice this. I'm excited that it is made for already one of the best tournaments of all time, one of the best final lobbies, just absolutely electric. And I'm looking forward to more. So I think we're all in agreement here. Checkmate's a great thing.
Tiny thing I just want to say is I actually think Prestvin could have won that last game, by the way, playing the Katarina reroll. I think if his roll down goes a little bit differently on stage 3, because if I remember correctly, he rolled down to hit Cat right away. And I think he was 1 Cat off 0 gold or 10 gold, something like that. And then he ended up getting the Radiant Hodge, which is like the condition in which Cat really comes online and can suddenly win. I think if he actually does hit Katarina 3 on that roll down and he high rolls just a bit more, he is now actually in a position where he can punish the players who are trying to go 9 way harder, because he didn't streak from his roll down on. And I think he still went 3rd. I think if he hit Katarina 3 and then win streaks the rest of the game until everyone tries to actually stabilize on 9, there is a world in which he actually does win. So that's it. Just last point, like, I don't think the Varus player had to win, and Varus had an 11% win rate across the weekend.
It's true.
So unless there was a sorting, it could. I actually feel like it's likely a sorting issue, because that number sounds way too low to me. But if that actually is true, then like I feel like the stats seem to indicate that you are not actually incentivized to go fast 9 into Varus, especially if you know you're playing contested.
I think
you convinced me.
The incentives are a very interesting thing and a very interesting part of what's coming out of TFT currently. One of the big things, a part of the prizing of TPC, is if you go first in the Americas or EMEA or APAC, you get $100. It's a great thing. We love that. But across the globe, it's not all the same, and I think the incentives have kind of changed the way people can play sometimes, and we very much saw this over in China with one of our competitions that was happening and a bounty specifically tied to a 3-star 5 cost, which if you play TFT, you know how incredibly rare that is, especially when you're playing against the best of the best, and it's going to be absolutely insane. So QR's Tanner, who is a coach for TFT, tweets about a lot of different things, covering a lot of the Chinese scene, dropped a tweet. I remember instantly DMing Gangly. I said, we have drama to talk about. Nick, why don't you go ahead and read this for us real quick and tell us what happened?
Okay. Breaking. Fire. According to the Yunyi Cup additional bounty rules, players will get a 2,000 CNY, which is about $300 USD bounty, if they hit a 3-star 5 cost and win the game. Flancy played a weaker board for one round to hit a 3-star 5 cost. DZ won a round against Flancy and lived for one more round. Li Tuchuan lost one tournament point and placed a 3rd instead of a 2nd in that game. Li Tuchuan then reported Flancy for match fixing and rejected to play next game unless Flancy got punished. He also titled his stream channel, "Punishing Match Fixing is the Bottom Line." But Flancy argued that if he didn't play for one more round, he would have lost the bounty, and if he gets punished, he will quit playing as well. What do you think in this case?
So this is the start. This is what exactly happened. So Flancy, in efforts to get this 3-star 5 cost, makes it so he doesn't just win the game. He makes it so it goes one fight longer so that he can get this bounty. Li Tuchuan loses a point. He's, in my opinion, right to be upset about that, right? That's not very nice. I should have gotten 2nd. Instead, I got 3rd. Fair. But Flancy then ends up doing the exact bounty, gets that 3-star 5 cost, and wins the game because those are instant wins, and it's electric. I think it was a 3-star Braum, and by the way, it just spins and knocks everything out like it's a Beyblade. It is fantastic. But there was a result. There was a punishment that came down from the Cup organizers, and it says this: the original intention of establishing the achievement bonus in the tournament was to encourage players to perform brilliantly without affecting the normal outcome of the game. Flancy's behavior has had substantial impact on the outcome of this game, so the penalty for Flancy is 0 points will be given to Flancy for this round, and the scores of other players will be calculated based on their ranking at the end of the round. He also got his prize bounty removed because he no longer won the game. And so not only does he lose his money, but it's as if he didn't even show up for this game. PieHat, as a, you TO more than us, what do you think about this?
First of all, these are just my opinions. These are Riot in opinions, just to give that out of the way, because I work with them for TO things in LATAM. Whenever you want to impose bounties or impose different or thingies, let's call it thingies, for flavor, you have to be very mindful of 2 things. You have to be mindful of what thingies you're adding to the tournament, and in what context you're adding them. Because if you add anything that will incentivize you to play weaker for a couple of rounds to achieve that bigger goal, to get more money, I, as a player, will do it. Because I have the resources, I have the way, and I have the place to be able to do that. So I think that starts as a mistake on the part of the bounties, on the bounty system, because you have to choose very carefully which bounties you want to do and how to implement them. You cannot do this and also punish the player for trying to win more money. And for example, I think this is correct. I'm not 100% sure, and if I am incorrect, probably Natures is gonna listen to this podcast and gonna yell at me for this. But for example, in all the the non-Chinese pro circuits, there's a bounty for winning the game, like CLE said. I'm sorry. But there's a caveat to that. As far as I know, you cannot win money on game 11 and game 12. But for example, let's say on game 9, on America's Pro Circuit, Gangly is top 4. First of all, congrats, you're amazing.
Thank
and
you.
second of all, depending on the points, he could be incentivized to play slightly suboptimal to win points, but not enough points to auto qualify to day 3. Instead, he would have the chance to play on game 11 and game 12 and maybe get 1-1 and win $200 more. And like, I think that's not the case. So yeah, I think this is a mistake on the bounties part, on the limits of where bounties are being held, and you cannot punish a player for following the incentives and the rules that you are trying to impose on your on the show. Like, I think that's just a mistake. And I do understand why Lituchuan is upset. I think it's reasonable, and I think one of the good things the things I respect the most about Chinese tournaments is that they are willing to report people. They are willing to say, "Hey, this wasn't legal. This wasn't nice. This punished me. I want to complain." And I think I respect that. I think that's really valuable. But I do not think Flancy was in the wrong here.
Flancy did a pretty reasonable thing, which is there were incentives given to him that was essentially a mini game within TFT. And I think if you're a tournament organizer and you give players a game to play, you have to expect them to play it. I there's a language, like, this is a translated message from Tanner, so take this with a grain of salt. The part of the language that I am frustrated by is this beginning part where it's the original intention of establishing the achievement bonus. And that's where it gets really tricky to me. And again, I'm like nitpicking specific language. The original intention of this rule. What does that mean? Okay, there's a couple things at play. One, does that mean that the intention was not actually communicated to the players, that this is what it was originally intended for, and we did not think that a player might do this? Because if that's the case, it almost sounds to me like they're kind of admitting, like, oh, we didn't mean that. We didn't tell them not to do that, but we didn't mean that. And it feels to me like the fault is just on the organizer then. I don't think that it's just hard, because I don't think anyone is doing anything maliciously here. I think Lituchuan has every right to be frustrated by what happened. I think that Flancy has even more of a right to be frustrated. And I think that the tournament organizers, from what I can tell, it was an oversight, that they genuinely did not believe that someone would make their board weaker in order to get the bounty. But it's your responsibility, and to have safeguards around that. There is also a world in which it was communicated to players that you are not allowed to try and play for bounties that alter the course of your game. And so if that was communicated to the players, then I think that this is a very different story, but we don't know. And so there's a lot left in the unknown. I personally don't agree with the ruling against Flancy. I think it's pretty unfair that he played toward a bounty that they presented to him, and then he was punished in multiple ways that will extend throughout the entirety of the set because of it. Like, to me, I feel like it should, at the very worst, be one or the other. Like, either take away the points or take away the bounty. Like, if you're going to take away his points, and I'm assuming he'll lose qualifier points for set 15 because of this ruling as well, give him the $300 that he tried to win, because you kind of dangled it in front of him, and then he tried to take it, and then you punched him in the face for trying to take it. So it feels a little bit unfair, but I really don't think that anyone is no one is being malicious, and I don't think anyone's entirely in the wrong here. I think it is kind of a nuanced situation.
Yeah. It very much is. Obviously, Flancy got the short end of the stick here, losing all those things. I think there could have been just a possible easy solution of okay, we'll just give Lituchuan one more point. There's going to be 2 people going second place here, because that really wasn't fair to you, but he's doing what we told him to do. Sorry. I don't know how that works within the competitive integrity, but taking away his points feels a lot worse, in my opinion. But it is something that we need to keep an eye on. We all organize different tournaments ourselves, and some of those things make these things happen. And as a TFT player, this is exactly what I would expect somebody to do, is if you're close to a 3-star 5 cost, you might need a couple more rounds to get there. It's totally reasonable if you have HP to trade. Go for it, man. Go for it. These are electric moments. These make great clips. Do it. And it was a great clip, but maybe not for the right reason at the end of the day. So Looking forward, we have recapped TPC across the globe. We've looked at some of the drama. We've seen the sub-regional results. Now what's coming up next? I know personally I'm super excited for the next Pro Circuit tournament, which is the mixing of regions. These are the player lists we have revealed for across the globe. We don't have our CN representatives yet because of the TOC-JOC dynamic, but at least for EMEA and Americas, it is going to be an absolute show. It is going to be so much good TFT to watch that weekend. Cancel my plans. I am sitting here and I'm going to yap about it for the whole time.
One of the great parts of this is the rivalry that's going to arise. Because if you win, even if you're an American player and go to the EMEA time slot and you compete there and you win, you will go to Worlds and you will snap and you will steal a slot from EMEA. That's gonna be a lot of. That's confirmed, by the way, so I can say this.
Good.
And there's a lot of. There's gonna be a really friendly banter, and I hope Americas has 2 slots because let's go Americas. And it's gonna be really, really fun in that way, at least.
I mean, now that the stealing the slot is confirmed, that's electric, right? Can you imagine crossing the sea, going over there and saying, "Nuh-uh, this is mine now. Too bad," and taking that back home. You'll be a hero.
The split for the EMEA one, which if you're a podcast listener, I'll just read some of the names because it actually is pretty crazy. Jack mentioned them earlier, but on just one of the tournaments, we have Cambly, Darthnub, Soju, Milk, Setsuko, Dish Soap, Wajan Iverson, Greya, Replay, all like on one side. The other side, I'm not trying to say that one is like softer, but I kind of like just if we're just judging players based off of stats and not off of personal feelings, the statistics would suggest that the one tournament is weighted very heavily in America's favor. I think we have a lot of our strongest players in one of the brackets. This one that's currently listed as the EMEA version. And so as much as I'm like, oh man, that gives us such a good chance to steal it away from EMEA, like I'm kind of wondering, is there a world where like we steal EMEA slot and then they steal ours? Because I think EMEA, if nothing else, does have a lot of depth. I think that's something that EMEA has always had going for them, is that they have so many strong players who are capable of winning the whole thing. So I'm rooting for Americas, of course, but I do not think we can sleep on EMEA.
It's just so fun. It's kind of like capture the flag. It's like, I'm going to steal your flag, but then yours going to be... Anyway, It's really fun. I think a lot of the most notable names as far as even creators go are invading that EMEA Cup in that time slot. So a lot of your favorite creators will be over there, and from EMEA as well. Like Revan's going to be there in that one. Lakoko, Canbiz, Cubixon, like all these guys, Jejisaur also. These people that we know, Snooty, as one of the biggest content creators as well, is also in that tournament. So that's probably where everybody's excited to watch that one. Is like, oh, these are all the big names alongside Soju and Dish Soap and Wajan and all these guys that are just amazing at TFT. So I'm really looking forward to that. But that is not for a few weeks. We have a little bit of time off because this weekend is Tacticians Trials. The weekend after that is Tacticians Cup, and then we'll be looking forward to the next Pro Circuit event, and it is going to be a good one. PieHat, you got a bunch of your stuff going on over the next few weeks as well?
And I'm really looking forward to Trials and Cup and seeing how players are gonna... And seeing if the renaissance of Latin America is gonna happen. We just had our sub-regionals as well, like a couple of weekends ago, and we won't have one until like the end of October, so this is just Americas all the way through until the end of the set, probably. So really looking forward to it.
Will you be co-streaming Trials or Cups or just TPC, PieHat?
We do a Spanish co-stream of almost every tournament on a place called Rincón TFT. Rincón is like the Spanish word for corner for people who don't know Spanish. So we've been doing that since 2022, I believe. So yeah, we are there like vibing, flaming our own people, and really getting hype when someone wins. So yeah, that's always fun.
Yeah, it's always good to go and tune in. I tune in there every once in a while, and I just say hi, and then I don't understand what's happening because I'm not fluent in Spanish like Gangly is, so I have to go, back to my English corners of the world. But it is very fun that you guys provide that, and it is a very valuable part of the scene. These co-streams are a lot of what people rely on for coverage in TFT right now, and the fact that you guys are so consistent in doing that for the Spanish community is huge. So well done to you guys at Rincón, and I'm excited to keep watching. But for us here, looking forward, Tacticians Trials, a lot of the players will be playing in that. This is that Tier 2 circuit that we talk about. This is what will help you get to the regional finals and then the Tactician's Crown, which gets you into the Pro Circuit. So for a lot of our players that aren't in the Pro Circuit this set, this is their way to fight through and into that Tier 1. And I'm excited to see who can come out on top this weekend. And then the next weekend, specifically, the top 10 of those head to regional finals, which is incredibly exciting.
Yep. It's going to be a busy couple of months for TFT. The one thing that's maybe worth noting is that because of TPC, the Trials and Cup field is going to be wider than we're used to, right? We're missing 32 competitors that are normally expected to dominate. So this is going to be a really exciting time to see some of the newcomers break out and make a name for themselves. So yeah, make sure you watch Trials and Cups and see, what underdogs are you going to be rooting for? Who's placing top 10 and finding themselves into the regional finals? I think there's going to be a lot of storylines made over the next couple of weeks. So yeah, you're not going to want to miss it.
And that's going to be a wrap for this episode of the Rolldown. If you haven't yet, please follow, subscribe, share the Rolldown, comment on it, whatever you need to do to help us make this show successful. We want to continue to cover the competitive TFT scene as best we can and have more people on like PieHat who are just experts in their field and big fans of Latin America and all the things. So first of all, thank you, PieHat, for coming on. So thankful to have your expertise and be able to share that with us. And I really enjoyed your soliloquies and your monologues specifically. That was fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm always happy to talk about TFT, to talk about LATAM, and mostly to talk with you too, because we haven't talked in a bit. So it's great to catch up and just vibe and jab, which is one of the things that we love doing the most. I hope my English was English enough. So I just hope that everything was able to be understood.
It was incredible having you here. And I just want to say, the last time you and I played in a tournament together was back in set 5 when you played a Nightbringer Diana, who was an assassin with Frozen Heart on it, and hard cheesed my Aphelios and ended up eliminating me from that game and knocked me out of the tournament. And I've never really gotten over it, but I'm happy that we were able to kind of bridge the gap here and, break some bread and have a moment to agree and disagree and have a nice chat. So yeah, it was great having you on. I'll never forgive you, but it was great having you on.
I'm sorry for hurting you like 4 years ago. Sorry. Thank God that Frozen Heart isn't here anymore, though.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that. I was a Nocturne one trick, and I'm happy it's not here.
It's the Frozen Heart's fault. It's not his fault. He didn't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all good. Well, now that we squashed the beef, we'll move on. We'll wrap this episode, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys soon for another episode of The Rolldown. Thanks for watching.